Hi, my name is Ken McAlpine. Welcome to today's episode of Our Ventura TV. Today we welcome a very special guest stepping out from behind the cameras to discuss the topic of personality branding. A very warm welcome to George Alger, who not only is the award-winning producer of this TV series, but is also the owner of the digital advertising agency Skyworks Marketing. Welcome to the show, George.
Wow, what a great intro. Thanks.
Well, thank you. I learned from the master. Yeah, thanks. I didn't want to mess this one up. Yeah.
You're getting a raise.
Yeah, well, thanks. You know, just let's cut to the chase. In this day and age where there's a sea of information and a lot of people are trying to get noticed, people sort of know what marketing it is, and they sort of know what advertising is, but they don't know what personality branding is. I don't know what personality branding is. So can you explain to the viewers what personality branding is, for starters?
Yeah, well, actually, I'm going to step back even just a little bit from that, because marketing is such a broad term that, in fact, when someone tells me that they work in marketing, I have no idea what that means. Meaning it embraces so many things, all right? I mean, someone who says they work in marketing could be a multi-million-dollar entrepreneur, which is primarily his success came from marketing. All right, it could be someone who's getting paid minimum wage as a telemarketer. So marketing embraces many things, including advertising, including publicity services, and everything you can do online and TV and radio. Personality branding is really one small subsegment of the entirety of marketing, and the way I would describe it is, if you looked at the term brand by itself, a brand really is a mark. You know, in fact, the good image is, cowboys branding their steer.
One. Yeah,
it is I wouldn't want that.
That's the first thing that popped into my mind. But yes, yeah.
But that's where it comes from. It's like there's that idea that rancher has a brand that he puts on his steer, and it shows ownership. All right, so these cattle are associated with that particular rancher. In the world of commerce, of course, Apple, McDonald's, and IBM, and Microsoft, and any brand that you're aware of has a mark. It's a symbol. And they're identified in the world through that symbol. Right. But when we're talking about personality branding, we're really talking about identifying a person with something. All right, so for instance, Steve Jobs is very much associated with Apple. And you could say, yeah, that's because he's famous and he's the head of a major corporation. It's true. On the other hand, if you look at all the major corporations of their products and services that you might use every day, like Coca-Cola, if you drink that, or Pepsi, or McDonald's, or if you see a FedEx or UPS truck, these are all big companies, worldwide companies, and yet you probably don't know who is
unless they got in trouble for something.
Yeah, exactly.
Then they don't, probably reverse or personality branding of the wrong kind. But you're right, you don't. I mean, the only other company I can think of where I actually knew the head was Phil Knight, who was the head of Nike, and he was just sort of famous as an innovator. But you're right, I couldn't tell you. I guess Ray Kroc, McDonald's, right? But that's it.
So you know the person, and that's in those unusual circumstances, but in most cases you don't.
Right.
But even if you do know the person, what is it that you know, all right? And this
right back to the company. Yeah, owner of. Right, that's it.
And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, all right? But personality branding is actually a little bit more. Steve Jobs is noted as an innovator, as a creative genius. Whether you use his products or not, or even like Apple or not, you still tend to know him in that light, all right? So he's more than just the past head of a company. He is the mind of that company. In more practical terms, though, really it refers to how can an individual or a small company, or any company for that matter, but make itself more known or visible through things that you can do. For instance, you're an author, all right? And you are, or any artist tends to be noted for their work, which is how you would think it should be. But if you were to also become noted for your expertise and really put yourself out, not as just an author, but you know, in your case, I know you like to write about seashore-related things. It's like, okay, if you are out in the world talking about something regarding the seashore, you become identified with this. And by the way, you're an author. So it's like, okay, here is someone who's very knowledgeable about the seashore, who is an author. So you can actually look to him as expertise on the subject. You're differentiating yourselves from other authors who might be writing about the seashore, all right? Even if you're an engineer. Or
so in a sense, you're establishing a little bit more of your credentials. I mean, some facets of yourself that people are not aware of?
Yep.
And, okay.
Sorry. No, that's totally spot on. You want to promote what it is that are your credentials, or what it is that you're good at, or what you're aspiring to, so that you become known for that.
And people often have a narrow view of themselves, George. I mean, you're a producer, I'm a writer, and so are a million other people, right?
Yeah, you could say that they're known only as a title, but that's not really what personality branding is. It's more than that. Even though, let's just say you have the term a writer or a producer or whatever. It's like, and you get introduced at a party, okay? So, all right, you know, if it's in Hollywood, there's a lot of producers and there's a lot of writers, okay? So it's like a meaningless term, all right? But if someone knows what you write and what you produce, it's like, oh, okay, then that is a better representation of who you are. Obviously, if they know that you are, you know, a guy who produces very well-known movies or TVs or TV shows or documentaries or books, you know, then that helps. But the purpose of personality branding is really to make yourself more known in a field, all right, however that might be. Nowadays, it's common to do it through social media, and to be known as an entity that is good at something. A very sort of prosaic example would be this. Let's take someone like an engineer who works at a company, and as far as he's concerned, he never wants to work at another company. And think, now, here's a person who probably could not benefit from personality branding. Okay. They have a resume, every bunch of years, whatever, he wants to find another job. But if he actually did have his own website, and he did participate in social media, and he became known in his community as an engineer who's pretty good with whatever specialty he has, the next time he goes to look for a job and employers look into him, they're going to see, wow, look at the contributions he's made to the community. Look at the people that are following him. Look at the articles that he's written. Look at these videos that are reflective of his expertise. It's like, whoa, okay, you have now differentiated yourself from all the other engineers who may have gone to school at the same time as you and may all be as knowledgeable as you, but you have differentiated yourself by promoting yourself.
And would he advertise those things via Facebook, George, a website? I mean, how does he get the word out that, you know, he has these unique talents?
In real personality...
When you say social media, to me, I mean, first of all, I'm not very good with that stuff in the first place, but it's just sort of this, that's another broad term like marketing. I mean, what specifically would this engineer do to get the word out about their sort of special skill set?
Yeah, good question. But also I want to differentiate between marketing and advertising. Advertising is going to be paid media, you know, regardless of whether it's television, radio, ads on in a newspaper or magazine, even ads on social media sites, for instance, ads on Facebook, paid ads on YouTube. Right. So that would be advertising. And yes, that has a place in commerce. For an engineer, probably not. He's not going to, why pay for advertising? This is, we're not really trying to build a big brand or really make a, you know, a business around him. He could if he wanted. But just because we use that as an example, I would just say just some free things, you know. So if he's, you know, an engineer that specializes, I don't know, in phones, okay. All right, just telephones. Like, okay, well, you know, here's a video of him.
Popular product.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's a video of him taking apart a phone. Matter of fact, here's a series of him taking apart a phone and showing, you know, what the phone is comprised of, and maybe here's phones over the years that, you know, here's what the technology was back then, here's what the technology was just a couple years ago, here's what the technology is today. So it's like, all right, some people will find this interesting, and including other engineers, including people who would hire engineers, all right? So what's occurring is, this doesn't have to cost anything at all all right? I mean, if you can get someone, either make the video yourself or to get someone to help you and then put it up on YouTube, okay, there's no money involved, but you're establishing yourself as an expert in a field, all right? For an actual business, then it becomes, you know, more strategic. All right, how do you feature your expertise as a person higher than maybe other guys that are in your field, all right? So then you may very well embrace specific advertising in addition to, you know, being involved with LinkedIn, so that's for, you know, social media for professionals.
That's a valuable service, you think, then, George?
I think I think people in business should be on LinkedIn, yeah. Facebook is more of a social thing, but there are still some opportunities that could be leveraged if you're on there. Certainly using YouTube, it's the it's the number 2 search engine in the world, so having stuff on there is like having a little store in a huge mall, you know, I mean, there's an advantage to it.
Great analogy, yeah.
Yeah, and there's many others, by the way, specialize into certain fields, you know, not as well known as some of the ones I just mentioned, but very popular with certain niches.
So the trick in this huge mall is distinguishing your store.
Yeah, in fact, that is what personality branding is about. How do you distinguish yourself? If it's just you as an individual who's really only looking to make sure you get another job in the future, you know, there's not so much work you need to do. But if you're a business and you want to somehow make yourself better known, well, by putting your face up there as an expert next to your business, people associate you as the expert. Another advantage is that, let's suppose you become you become a guy who makes phones, and they're really good phones, right, to stick with that analogy. Well, if we were to do some promotion, some marketing and or some advertising to promote your company's phones, well, you may inspire someone to buy another phone. In other words, they realize, you know what, I do need a new phone. Your marketing got someone interested in phones. So they go and they buy a phone. It wasn't yours, all right, but they went and bought a phone, okay? Of course, that doesn't help your business at all. But if you're associating yourself as, you know, these are my phones, and my phones have these things in them because I know about these things. This isn't a very good example, by the way, because people are quite familiar with phones. But the idea is you're trying to establish a personality that is intrinsic to that service, so they can't get it anywhere else. It now takes it away from being a commodity, all right? I could buy a phone from a number of different manufacturers, but I can only buy this person from that person.
And you probably have to establish an element of trust and that sort of thing too. I mean, I think people trusted Steve Jobs. They knew that he was fervent in what he did and passionate and creative. And I think, do you think to an extent that might have led some people to buy Apple products because they saw this face and that face was associated with passion and knowledge and those sort of things?
I think so. I mean, even to this day, people are, you know, very ardent supporters of Apple and Steve Jobs, all right? And Steve did some very powerful things for our world in terms of his vision and in terms of what he introduced, you know. So he is a genius, you know. He has his flaws, but nevertheless, what he did was good for the world. I'm not particularly, I don't actually use Apple products, you know, but nevertheless, I have this great respect for him. Again, we're looking at Apple in terms of not just a product, a manufacturer of hardware and software, but here is a company that is built by a man who's a genius, you know? So it's like, wow, okay. So that's a good example of a high-known or well-known personality branding type of environment. They've done a lot of other marketing and advertising too, by the way. It wasn't solely personality branding. They have superb products, which was...
that helps. Now, we're almost out of time, so let me ask you this, George. This is sort of, in my mind, the crux question. You know, there are a sea of people out there all competing with each other for the consumer's dollars, I guess. So any last words on how those people would distinguish themselves? And I know that's what we've talked about for the past 15 minutes, but I think in the back of people's minds, it's like, how do I rise above this torrent and get noticed?
Well, if you have money, there's certain strategies. If you don't have money, then there's still other strategies you can use. Social media is definitely one of them. And, you know, as I advise folks, look, don't look at social media as the is what you're basing your business on, unless you can really have a long-term view, because the results can be fabulous, but they're unpredictable. All right. But my advice would be for anybody at all, even someone who envisions they'll only be working at a job forever, is to take their expertise and leverage it, so that if their work and situation does change, then they've given themselves a competitive advantage by establishing themselves in their industry as an expert. So, when it comes time for future employers to look at you, they already see there's a history of someone making themselves known in their field.
Well, thanks, George. I mean, we could probably turn this into 1,000,000 15-minute segments, but we appreciate your time. I'm Ken McAlpine, and we'd like to thank George Alger again for his expertise on this very interesting topic. Until the next time, thanks for watching.